What's important to you? My mission is to ask as many people as possible this question, because I believe once you know what's important, you can design and build a life of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. My name is James Dean. I'm a life coach, and I hope this podcast inspires you to uncover what's important to you. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at James Dean Coaching, or connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also learn how I can help you understand what's important at jamesdeancoaching.com. Today's guest is a master coach in the art of being unmessable with, no matter what life throws at you. She has spent over 30 years as an entrepreneur, author, coach, leader, and designer of transformative programs. Her mission is to empower people to live the life of their dreams now versus someday, and to develop themselves into being unmessable with in the process. She has appeared in dozens of media outlets, including ABC, NBC, CBS, Wall Street Journal, New York Magazine, The New York Times, and Fast Money. And she gave a TEDX talk, Abracadabra, Living the Life of Your Dreams Now, Not Someday. A former pop singer and songwriter, she and her group recorded the hit That's What Love Can Do, which was the Billboard #1 song in America. She is a wife and mother of 3 and a native New Yorker living in Manhattan with her husband and children. Today, we find out what's important to Josselyne Herman-Saccio. Hi, Josselyne. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really looking forward to this, to chat to you now. So we're going to kick off straight off with the first question, Josselyne, which is, what's important to you?
Well, people are important to me. And then making it like the microcosm of that, my family is important to me, probably the most important thing to me. But people are important.
And when you say people, what do you mean by that? Say, I know what you mean by your family. Well, when you say people, what's the next layer under that?
Well, I've spent, more than 30 years in at least an attempt to make a difference with people in all different ways, whether it's raising money for charity or leading transformative programs or coaching people or my company that's designed to empower people to make their dreams come true in the entertainment business. So, if it were just my family, I'd just be working on those things with my family. And it isn't just my family. It really is. I'm committed that people live the life of their dreams, not dream the life of their dreams, but actually get to live it while they're alive, not go to the grave with those dreams intact,
Yeah, I mean, because from looking at some of the work in a sense of over those 30 years and the sort of the variation, I suppose, of your career to date, people is very much at front and center.
Yeah.
But I suppose that the next layer under that, as you say, is it's their dreams. It's not you trying to impose something on them. So it's very much trying to get them to come out of themselves. So
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah.
yeah. So where did that sort of I'm interested in the sense of where that sort of thought process for you came from, in a sense of why did you want to know about them versus telling them about you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. It's funny. I don't know. I'm looking myself now that you asked that question. I would say if I had to like pinpoint a time period, it was somewhere between the ages of like 18 or 19 and 21 when I started to heavily participate in transformative seminars. And, I was doing relationships courses and communication courses and money courses and I was doing all this stuff for me.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, okay, so now I have these skills. So what? Like now what? And it was like a natural migration into, well, how do I have other people have this? because, if you're the only one at a party, it's sort of, boring, So
Yeah.
I just naturally started sharing and asking the people in my life, what are your dreams? What do you want? And then for sure, when I became a pop singer, and that was one of the results I got out of my own transformative work when I disappeared this belief that you cannot do your art as your career, and within 3 months had a record deal.
Mm,
That's when I was like, that's it. I have to make sure other people get their dreams because I've had like all my dreams come true. So
yeah.
now I want to make other people's dreams come true, or at least empower them to make their own dreams come true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought up the pop star piece, because obviously I was going to go there at some point. And I find it really interesting, the sorts of sometimes in someone's head, or in mine sometimes, it's like it seems like such a dichotomy, in a sense of someone who's gone into the sort of entertainment business and had a number one record in the US with a song, and then to a lot of people, to me, sometimes they see such parallels, in a sense of like working in the music industry, being successful in that, and then moving into, well, for better words, the well-being space, the coaching space, transformation space. How did, was it a sort of natural coming together, or how did, because they seem so polar apart in some ways.
Well, in a real way, I was already on the transformative pathway
Sure.
when the pop singing happened.
Okay.
So I think that was the holder for it. If it
Yeah.
hadn't have been for the work I did in transformation, I wouldn't have become a singer at all. I was
Right.
too convinced it wasn't possible. So that pop open, the source of it was transformation.
Gotcha.
And it's something I call a power source relationship. When you acknowledge the source of your power, you get more power. So does the source, like that. Otherwise, you're kind of taking credit without acknowledging the source, kind of like we do with our parents. We take credit for how great our life is and don't acknowledge them as the source, which is
Yeah.
not smart. So that whole power source relationship just kept going. And I kept, participating and contributing transformation to other people. I've been coaching people for more than 30 years. It's hard to
Yeah.
believe. It's like
Yeah.
another lifetime ago. In fact, just a little bit ago was the 30-year anniversary of our number one hit.
Wow. Wow.
Crazy. On St. Patty's Day, there you go.
Okay, very good. Very good. So that, because it's interesting the way you explained that, because there was a lady I spoke to last year, and she kind of is in the world of coaching and psychology, and she did acting as a sort of in a previous career. And I asked the same question, and she said something similar to yourself. It was like it was already there.
Yeah.
It was, and so the follow-up question for yourself, in sense of you going through that experience of being in the band, being that pop star, having that record, what was the impact that it had on you then, to have fulfilled that dream? What was the real impact that it had for you?
Well, the impact on me was that the sky was the limit. It was like there was
Yeah.
nothing I couldn't accomplish. But bigger than that is there's nothing people can't accomplish. So
Mm,
whenever I would meet, and met a lot of people, obviously, not just in my travels as a singer, but also in the world of transformation, just as a human being, I would meet people and they would say, oh, I have this dream, blah, 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 but that'll never happen. Or
mm,
someday and that's when I started to get really committed to people disappearing someday and
mm,
living their life now and living their dreams now. And I began to create this curriculum called the Art of Being Unmessablewith, which is, my whole world now. That's what I'm, designing and delivering to people, is ways to develop themselves, not only to live their dreams now, but to be unmessable with in the process. So no matter what circumstance life throws at you can stay true to your vision, you can stay true to your dream, you can act from your creation versus reaction. And a lot of this, when I had that breakthrough back in my early 20s to become a singer, right around that time my brother had HIV and he was dying. And
mm.
I remember it was like he was in the hospital, and I was, we all knew he was going to die, but it's, whether you
Yeah.
know it or not, it's pretty upsetting, obviously. And I was sitting with him and I said to him, I'm really afraid you're going to die. And he said, I am going to die.
Mm,
And I was like, he goes, I'm not afraid. He goes, I've done everything I wanted to do in my life. I've had a great life. He goes, don't leave any some days.
mm.
So that's my mantra.
Yeah.
Disappear someday.
Yeah. No, I mean it's extremely powerful and a very obviously very visceral sort of experience and image. And I suppose in the fact that when you was this before you had the record when that experience with
Yes.
your brother? Okay.
Yep, it was right in the period. So I did this transformative course. I had this insight that you can't do your art as your career was not the truth. It
Yep.
was something I made up when I was 5 and got a
Yep.
lot of evidence for. So that kind of made it malleable. And then right in that week, I was with my brother. And within 2.5 months after that, I got the record deal.
Wow. Yeah. So and I think it definitely highlights in a sense the power of self-belief. Or is it self-belief or is it a kind of a combination of self-belief and just, well, I'm just gonna just give it a go anyway.
I think it's more the second. I think it's more just like go for it. Like
Yeah.
game on. What is the worst that could happen is you fail, but at least you fail at your true dream versus
Yeah.
succeed at surviving some dream by default that somebody gave you that
Yes.
you think you should be living. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had the most exhilarating times when I failed at something true,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. And no, it's just thinking that in a sense of when you were sharing the story. I have to share this now because when you were sharing that story about your brother, um, a couple of years ago. So just to divulge in this for a tangent, I took redundancy from the job that I had for 16 years within the insurance business here in Ireland, and I was like, I've been doing sort of I did personal training on the side. I got into coaching, and I was like, well, I had the opportunity, right? Let's give this a go, and we're just gonna see what happens. And my father passed away about 18 months ago,
I'm
and
so sorry.
before that, sort of any when he knew I was leaving the job and stuff, and I can remember I was just chatting to him about all the things I was going to do and stuff. And at one point, he kind of said, I was telling him about work and about the job and stuff, and he said this moment, he's like, "Oh, you're not quitting, are you?" He said, "You're not staying there, are you?" I went, "No, no, no." And he went, "Oh, good." And it's that little thing I remember now. He said, "Make sure you quit." It's quite almost an unusual
Yeah.
thing for my dad to say to quit a job because he
Well,
knew.
people sometimes people who are passing
Mm,
realize what's important, which is, not the stuff that we normally focus on in life.
yeah,
The stuff that
yeah,
stresses us out is not what at the end of the day, oh, I wish I worked more hours.
yeah,
No, it's not
yeah,
that. But I'll
yeah.
tell you another dead person story now that we're
Go
on the
on.
dead person story.
Yeah,
Okay, my grandfather, one of my grandfathers, um, when he was 95, he was not doing well and he wasn't eating. So my mother sent me down to Florida to visit him and get him to eat because he loved me. And I was kind of, the one who could always get him to do stuff. So I was sitting next to his bed and he's holding my hand and he looks at me and he goes, "Are you happy?" And I looked and I was like, "Yeah, I am. I'm happy." He said, "Good. If you're not, change your mind." And in
yeah,
that moment, I was like, that is pretty much it. It's like,
yeah,
how's that suffering thing going for you? Maybe we
yeah,
should alter what we're dealing with here and what we're saying and what we're doing because you always have a say over your experience of life. You don't necessarily have a say over the circumstances like your
yep,
dad passing or my brother passing, but how you be with that, how you view it, how you deal with it is
yep,
completely up to you.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I'm interested in the sense of because the experience you have in a sense of 30 years of working with a number of people you have in transformation space and a coaching space is the whole thing of you know getting someone to really open up and say what their dream is because from my experience of with only being sort of a year or so into sort of the industry coming up behind you, even my experience with working with people, it's never really the first thing they say. It's it's there may be a surface thing there, but it's kind of like it takes a bit of time to get into the real details. So I'd be interested in the sense because I know you've done this, like how do you get underneath and really understand what people really want?
Well, I think part of it has to do with training and being
Mm,
able to be trained here. what's
Mm,
underneath, because sometimes you can hear things people aren't saying, right?
mm,
And when people tell you something, to be able to hear if that's the whole deal. And that's from years of practice, right? That's
mm.
from years of interacting with people and being like, I don't think so. And
Yeah.
being able to ask them another question. Okay, well, if you had that, then what would be possible? So
Mm,
that's, a technique that you can use, which I do use in groups of people. Like in my course, The Foundation for Being Unmessable With, the first session is asking people, what's your dream?
yeah.
And I can hear sometimes something that's not really a dream, it's a goal. And a goal is different than a dream. A goal is like, double my income by December. That's like a by when specific measure. That's a goal.
Yeah.
Dreams are more up and out. They're not so down and in like a
Mm,
concrete thing. So dreams are more like be self-expressed, make a difference,
okay.
fulfill my heart, or whatever, those kind of
Yeah.
open space kind of things. So that's how I distinguish between dreams and goals. Most people
Interesting.
have them conflated.
Yeah.
And when you get stuck in a goal as if that's your dream, here's the problem with it. The minute you reach it, you're satisfied for like 45 seconds. And then there's the next goal and the next goal. Goals have that nature to them. It's like, okay, what's next? What's next? Like the next carrot, like a donkey
Mm,
chasing a carrot. And you'll never really be satisfied chasing goals. You might be accomplished. I mean, and I work with very accomplished people, but then they're like, okay, now what?
yeah.
Yeah, I've got the money in the bank and I've got the house here and I've got the whatever, or if you don't, but whatever you have, you've accomplished whatever you've accomplished. But now what are you really fulfilling? That's
Yeah.
different than accomplishing.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that's the for me as well, that's the more interesting piece. How do you, the sort of that piece of fulfillment, because that's the difference, but that everyone has that little bit of nuance of what's fulfilling for that individual person. So,
And
the whole thing.
that's something most people never get to. Like, what are they
Yeah.
really fulfilling? And mostly they
Mm,
get caught up in the cycle of get things done and accomplish this and accomplish that. And then they end up like your dad and my brother on their deathbed going, okay, well, don't get caught up in that.
mm,
I actually created a whole process, James, called the Dream Source Discovery Process. It's a
mm,
5-day thing that I have people go through to be able to discover what's really the source of their dreams. What do they really want at
mm.
the end of the day? What's the legacy they want to leave for people?
Yeah.
As well as come from themselves. So I have a little 5-day process that helps people get to that because most people never do.
Yeah. Because it's a I was one of the things I was looking at before we had the chat was the concept or the idea. You had this idea of this dream source, and I say it's not something I'd thought about or considered before. And when I was watching it, I was thinking, as you say, there's something that's the surface below. And do you when you I'm interested in that, the dream source piece, is that something that you think is more emotive? Is it an emotion that's coming out in
It's
something
not
that?
emotion, it's more, I mean, this sounds a little woo-woo, and I'm not
Yeah.
very woo-woo, but
Yeah.
it's like spatial.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, well, let me do it with you.
Go on.
So
Let's do it.
what is like one of your goals, like your life goals?
Well, that's the one that I was thinking about when I was watching it. I'll tell you this now is actually because it's coming up within a month. Is I'm taking part in the London Marathon, so I'm
Uh-huh.
participating, and that's been literally the one I can remember since childhood. So
Wow.
that is literally has been a life goal, and I've been doing sort of marathons for the last 10 years, trying to get into the London Marathon for the last 7 years. So it's literally within a month's time. So that's like a very specific, if you want to mean,
Yeah.
life goal that's coming up.
So that's going to be over though in a month, right? So
Yes.
let's say now you're going to accomplish that. So
Yeah.
then what do you see, like if you look up and out, what do you see is going to be available or present when you complete that goal?
Yeah. It's kind of, and this is where I was trying to think, it's like part of it is like, there's the sort of very materialistic part of it, the medal, the t-shirt, the photographs, but it's the
But you
actual.
could go to a studio and get
I
those.
would get
So
all
we
that stuff.
already know. Yeah,
So we know
exactly. So
that.
that's not really it.
So it really is when you think of, well, the first level is the experience of doing it. It's the experience of a capital city, a major capital city closing down for me to run through it. It's the experience of being an individual amongst 40,000 other people who have all got a reason, a story for being there. They're all, it's kind of like it's this really weird thing of most of us won't even know each other, but we all have a commonality for the reasons why we're doing it. So, and it's funny, like, because it's like I'm doing it for charity, but that was kind of secondary in some way,
Yeah.
very sort of personal. It's like it's that sort of it's the closest I will be to being an elite athlete. It's like I'm
Okay.
nowhere near, no, I'm nowhere near elite. They're like
I get it.
twice as fast as me. But it's that moment of sort of like it's the moment, I suppose, if anybody go further, it's like a moment in the spotlight.
Okay.
It's the moment you kind of like you're running or jogging, shuffling through the streets. Complete strangers are trying to are cheering you on. You get that moment across the line of accomplishment, and it very much is that feeling of, you know, if I can do this, what can I not do? I can do
So now
anything.
let's go there. So let's
Yeah,
take that a little bit further. So now
yeah,
let's say it's complete, you've accomplished it, the cheering's over, blah,
yeah.
blah, blah. So now what is it that's available to you as a human being that wasn't available before that?
It's I tell you what, it's another level of confidence. It's another level of um ability to overcome.
Beautiful. So now let's
Yeah.
go with that. Confidence and the ability to overcome. Let's say you just had that, like there was just no mountain, there was no top to any mountain, you could accomplish whatever. Then what would be possible?
Then it's like it's possible I bring it back to myself in a sense of what I'm trying to do now with this podcast or with my coaching business. It's like I can grow it to the level that I want to be able to grow it to, and nothing's going to get in the way of that.
And let's say you did that. Let's say it's huge. It's millions of
Yeah.
downloads and da, da, da. Then what's possible? That isn't
It's
possible now.
it's the being able to reach more people and impact more people.
Yeah, that's your dream source, impact.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, I get it.
Isn't that wild?
It is. It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And you see, it's not emotion, it's a
No.
spatial thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting to go through that in real time because there is an element of emotion to it.
It's moving.
Yes, but it's yeah, there is that further sort of wording and I never and is what I love about this stuff is because I never said that words before and things like that, you know. So that's the really it's really impressive. And I thank you so much for diving straight in there and
Oh,
doing
it's
that
not
with me.
it's my work. That's what I
Yeah,
do. That's what my
yeah,
life's for. But now if you think about impact, right? So now if
yes,
you can think about that as like your North Star, that's not necessarily where you're getting to, it's where you're coming from.
yeah,
So you can be somebody who has impact at Starbucks. You don't
yeah,
have to wait till you have a million downloads. You
yes,
can have impact, you know, with your family. You can come from that world. So this is when we're talking about fulfillment versus
mm,
chasing a goal. So this isn't
yeah,
about the million downloads. It isn't about the marathon. It isn't about any of that stuff. You can
yes,
literally fulfill on impact right now
yes,
and right now
yes.
and right now.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing. And to kind of sort of swing it back to you, and in some ways, is that where you get your fulfillment from?
It's pretty much, you know,
Yeah,
that and, you know, listening to Barry Manilow and eating cheese and drinking rosé on the streets of Paris, but pretty much that
yeah,
is. I mean, you know, I'm interacting with you. We just met, whatever,
yeah,
20 minutes ago or something, and you get what your dream source is, and I'm moved to tears.
yeah,
What's better than that?
yeah,
To
yeah,
open up that world for people. There's
yes,
nothing better. I'm the
yeah,
luckiest person in the world.
absolutely. And yeah, and I mean, it just even just for this the briefest of moments now, I can see the impact that word again that I'm just saying
Yeah,
now, but
now that's it. That's your
that's
word now.
it. That's the word that's going to keep coming up. Um, but it's I can then see in a sense of, you know, why you do what you do. I can see if just personally just experienced it in the briefest of moments now, but the why you would want to work with as many people as you can in order to enable them to access this.
Yeah, and not only work, because obviously I'm only one human being. I can't work
Sure.
with, 8 billion people. But that's why I want to be on your show. And that's why
Yeah.
I want to be out there as much as possible and offer things that are all different price range so that, people aren't priced out of being able to
Yeah.
access this, everything from my free stuff to my one-on-one coaching, which isn't free. So
Sure.
when you think about it, it's like if every day I can have the opportunity to impact. I mean, see, here's the thing about dream sources. When you get yours, it's the space now of our conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now that's everything I'm looking at is through the lens of impact. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at what impact can I have through the people that listen to you that never would have even known that
Yeah.
this whole dream source thing
Existed.
exists.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that's like a game worth playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the the one question I'd so before we got a few more, but one of the ones I want to ask is the fact that obviously you've been doing this as a business for 30 years as well. And I think that's I don't know if you've experienced it since past sort of post COVID and the pandemic. One of the things I think in Ireland that's definitely happened, and then I'd say across the UK as well, is um, a lot of people have kind of taken stock of where they are, and career is definitely one of them. And the sort of, and maybe it's like part of someone's dream was, you know, working for themselves or setting up a business or going into a partnership, whatever it is, not in the career that they were in. They're kind of like, they've
Yeah.
realized I'm done. So as someone who's kind of been in business for 30 odd plus years, do you have any even just sort of advice or tips or for anyone who's kind of at that brink of thinking, oh, I'd really want to do this or change their career?
Well, it's interesting because although I've been doing the same thing in terms of coaching for 30 years,
Mm,
about a year ago, I completed 30 years at Landmark Worldwide, where I led the forum and the advanced course, right? So that was a 30-year career where I led for another company transformative programs. So the art of being unmessable with was always my thing that I was doing separately with my
right.
books, with my TED Talk, and once I completed, which was also to fulfill my dream of living in
Yeah.
France, that's why I completed, and now I'm moving next month.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's like I definitely at that point took 3.3 months off to see what I wanted to do. I was like, I don't know what I want to do, and this was just natural to develop courses and
Yeah.
material and offerings over the art of being unmessable with. I was like, what else am I going to do with my life? Sit
Yeah.
around eating cheese? I don't think that's really going to fill my days or my heart. So
Yes.
that shift in career
Yep.
happened for me recently, and I just, grew this out of nothing and my word. So anybody creating anything, you better get super good at honoring your word,
Yeah.
because you can't create except in language.
Yeah.
And when you create something like a new company, or just like I did, a new company, a one-on-one coaching practice, you have to have actions that are fulfilling on those words. So promising is a very, very powerful tool. Like I promised to speak to 10 people this week about investing in my company, whatever it is, that
Yeah.
and then do what you say. Because if
Yeah.
you don't do what you say, you're not going to be able to create anything.
For
And your
sure.
word is your wand. You can create anything if you
Yeah.
follow your word up with
Yeah.
action.
Yeah. I think it's so powerful for that to be what you say, because I think a lot of people who I've spoken to, or other people who are kind of trying to, at this moment thinking, oh, I'm going to go into business, they can get so caught up in the detail of all the sort of the terminology. Oh, I've got to, things, not that they're not important, things like taxes and
Sure.
registrations. It's all there. It's all there. But you can get so caught up in it in sense of, as opposed to something, as you say, honoring your word, doing what you say, because it's, otherwise you're kind of stopping yourselves up with confusion.
Yeah, it's funny. I call it like there's the world of reaction and then there's the world of creation. And the world of creation is all about word and action
Yeah.
and fulfilling on your word what you're creating. The world of reaction is like dealing with what life is throwing at you. You
Yeah.
get an email and then you got to deal with that. So this world is like looking down, managing, surviving. This world is looking up and out and fulfilling on your vision. So if you think about it as a muscle, most people's muscle is really strong in the world of reaction. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody effective enough to want to start their own company is
Yes.
good at getting stuff done. And that's all
Yeah.
in this world. The world of creation is like an atrophied muscle. So you have to work it out. And a very simple way to work it out, James, is literally things like, I promise to take the garbage out at 7 o'clock. Do it at 7, not 7:05. I promise to run 10 miles today. Do 10 miles, not 9.5.
Yeah.
It's just literally having your word match reality enough times, and then your word can become law in the universe, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Love it. One of the questions I love to ask my guests, because I love them and I'm fascinated them, is the world of quotations or phrases and things like that. So I'd love for you, if you have one, to share it with us now. Yeah, go ahead.
I do. I brought it with me. It's
Brilliant.
it's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it's the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy.
Mm,
And that to me embodies what it is to be unmessable with. It's easy to
mm,
be unmessable with when things are great. But
yeah.
when your father's dying, or your mother
Mm,
has a stroke, or your husband's out of work, or your wife cheats on you, or whatever happens,
yeah.
that's when the muscle of being able to stand in creation, not reaction,
Mm,
is useful.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really powerful one. And what I love about when I ask people about quotes that are important to them, um, is, and it's not a surprise, but it's just how they are such a reflection on who we are, in that sort of, and I think this is why I think they can be considered that sort of woo woo again. You can,
Yes, right.
because they can just get thrown at us left, right, and center. But what I think is where I love about them is like, if you really do take one and honor that sort of phrase or quote, it literally will just move you and shift you in a way that you wouldn't think is possible otherwise.
Yeah, it's like a North Star. It can be
Yeah.
because I was thinking between the two quotes, I had
Yeah.
another one that I love and have everywhere, which is from Gandhi, which is
Yeah.
be the change you wish to see.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, if we go back to your dream source, right, of
Yeah.
impact, be impact.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't accomplish impact, be it. So when you walk in the room, impact is present. And
Yeah.
that's, the opportunity to fulfill your dream right now, not someday when you run the marathon or
Yeah.
someday when you hit 1 million downloads. It's being the embodiment of the change you wish to see.
Yeah. Love it. Um, the other thing I like to know, and you've mentioned obviously there Martin Luther King and Gandhi, some amazing people that we've had the sort of the presence in our world that we have their impact from them. Are there any other people that have been hugely influential to you?
Well, Jimmy Carter, who, was not known as a great president, but post presidency, I think is one of the best human beings that ever lived. Definitely has had an impact on me in terms of who he is for his community.
Okay.
That's made a huge difference. And then my grandfather, not the one that I talked about,
Yeah.
although he obviously did too, but I had another grandfather who died at 105,
Wow.
and he was his word. We talk
Right.
about honoring your
Yeah.
word. This is a man who he said something and it happened. You did not need contracts with this man. He was so unbelievable. At 93, he had open heart surgery. They put in a pacemaker. And first of all, they didn't even want to operate on him because he was 93.
Mm.
But I got a doctor to agree to operate on him. And then 10 years later, they had to change the battery in his pacemaker because they only give him a 10-year battery and they didn't think he was going to
Wow.
last. And he worked until he was 103.
Oh my God.
103. Unbelievable, right? Drove until he was 100.
Wow.
And this man, just everything about him was solid, you
Yeah.
know? And he said at his 100th birthday, they did an article about him in the New York Times. And he was asked, what's your lesson, And he said, can't we all just get along,
Yeah.
you know? And that, my life has been about peace and peace on the planet in our lifetime. And a lot of it came from him,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, no, I could do that. I'm smiling. And do you know what I mean? You just saying, talking about him. That's amazing. I can absolutely see why that would be, how someone like that would be such an influence. So, no, I appreciate you
Huge.
sharing that. Yeah, I
Huge.
appreciate
I
you
have,
sharing it.
if we have time, I could tell you
Yeah,
one other thing about
go for it.
he just made such an impact in my life. So I created this 100th birthday party for him, right? And we had 100 of the most important people in his life, whatever,
Yeah.
100 people. And he toasted everybody. At the end, he said, I'll see you at my 105th. Right. So this is a man who everything he said happened. So I heard that like, okay, he's going to live till 105.
Yeah.
So I'm living like that's going to happen because nothing he said ever didn't happen. So,
Yeah.
I'm ready for that. And then at about 104, we were having just a family birthday party. And I said to him, listen, I will organize a 105th birthday party for you, but you have to give me your word that you're going to be around because I am not going to like plan a party and then have to cancel it and contact all those people. So what's the word? He said, you have my word. So I'm now going to plan this party. And about 6 months later, he got sick and I was leading a course and I got a call from my aunt and uncle who he lived with. And
Mm.
they said, we think you should come say goodbye to grandpa. I was like, what are you talking about? Where is he going? And they go, well, he hasn't eaten in about 3 days. And, hospice is coming in. And I was like, what are you talking? I said, put him on the phone right now. They said, he's not responsive. I said, you just put the phone up to his ear, right? So he hasn't eaten now in whatever many days. And I say to him, grandpa, you promised me 105. Don't do anything till Monday because I was leading. So I had to
Yeah.
wait till I said, I'll be there on Monday and we will have a conversation, but don't do anything stupid. So then my aunt gets back on the phone. She said, he nodded his head. I don't know what you said, but he nodded his head. I said, okay, fine. So I drive out there. He was in New Jersey. I was in New York
Yeah.
on Monday morning. And now he hasn't eaten for like 6 days. And I don't know if you've ever seen a 104-year-old after they have not eaten for 6 days, but
Yeah.
he looked like a different person, right?
Yeah.
And in that moment, I realized that I was holding him to his word for me,
Yeah.
not for him. So I sat down with him and I said, okay, here's the deal. I'm releasing you from your promise, but this is going to go how you say, because everything does. And right now, you're just not saying. So you say one way, you say the other way. I'll back you either way. But
Yeah.
you need to say, because it's an integrity issue for you not to have a word in the matter, Grandpa. And he
Yeah.
just looked at me. And there was a hard-boiled egg on the table next to him. And he looked at the egg and he looked at me and he looked at the egg. And so I picked up the egg and I took off a piece and he ate the egg. Within 5 days, hospice was gone. We were out to dinner at his favorite restaurant in New Jersey. I swear to God. And 3 months later, we celebrated his 105th birthday with
Wow.
his great grandchildren and his grandchildren and everybody all around him. It was smaller because in 5 years,
Yeah.
people had passed, right? But there we were. And 2 months after that, he passed.
Wow.
So that's the power of word. When you
Yeah.
really develop that muscle, you can
Yeah.
say 105 and have 105 happen.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Thanks for letting me. I
Yeah.
love being able to have my grandfather's life make a difference with people.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think if we again to circle back to that word of impact again. Do you know what I
Oh,
mean? In the sense of like, not just on you, but it's if you think of that sort of that whole thing of the ripple effect, like that, how it has you, all those people that were ever in his presence, and what that the whole thing of legacy in sense of carrying things on, the way things, that word of integrity you said, that you counter your word, that like his life and then eventually his death, the impact it can have
yeah.
fast is so superior and so incredible. It's beyond powerful, because you say like even now so it's not just within the family. Do you know what I mean? That impact
Yeah.
can just keep growing and growing. It's quite incredible.
Well, I think what's so great about this conversation is that you now have this lens called impact.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
everything's being colored by. And that's what
Yeah,
happens when you get your dream source. It's like
yeah,
your whole everything is colored by that. It's like you have blue glasses on and now everything has a tinge of blue
yeah,
and you can see things you didn't see before. So now everything is like what impact, impact, impact. You're
yeah.
seeing through the lens
Around.
of your creation.
Yeah, absolutely. So powerful. Jocelyn, I've had a brilliant time talking to you. I'm sure we
It's
could carry on
wonderful
talking
being
all
with you.
day.
I know, really. Maybe again someday.
Yeah. I do have just one more question for you, which is what's important for your future?
I would say right now, the thing we're working on, my husband and I have a bit, I'm looking at it right now, is this big board called Freedom. Our
Okay.
kids are 17, 20, almost 21, and 26, almost 27. And we're, moving part-time to Paris, which has been my dream for 40 years.
Yeah.
So we're really creating a year where we can be free to be wherever we are and accomplish what we want to accomplish and fulfill on what we want to accomplish, no matter where we are.
Nice.
So that's the next chapter.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I designed this whole thing with being unmessable with, because I can do that from anywhere. I
Yeah.
don't have to be in a room. I don't have to be in a city. I can be anywhere I've got Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I can fulfill on, who knows where I am right now. I could be in a basement in Detroit for all you know, right? But I'm
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But it's just the freedom to be able to fulfill on my dream source
Yes.
everywhere.
Amazing. No, I love it. As I say, Jocelyn, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I want to make sure that people are able to follow, connect, and support you. We will make sure anything and everything about yourself is shared within the show notes. But if
Great.
you want to give a shout out now where people can connect and follow you online, go ahead.
Sure. My website is theartofbeingunmessablewith.com.
Fantastic. And I say that link will be shared in the show notes. So make sure you please visit that website and check out all of the content and programs that Jocelyn has available. Once again, thank you so much for chatting to me today.
Total pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and share. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Again, you can follow me at James Dean Coaching on Facebook and Instagram. Connect with me on LinkedIn or find out more about me on jamesdeancoaching.com.